Hi guys, so today we are doing the Pythagorean theorem and some more triangles. By the end of the period, you guys will be able to use Pythagorean theorem and its converse to determine missing lengths, solve applications involving triangulation and right triangles, determine Pythagorean triples and determine whether three sides form a triangle, and then classify triangles by their side lengths, acute, right, or obtuse. So the Pythagorean theorem is if you have a triangle that is a right triangle, then the first leg squared plus the second leg squared equals the hypotenuse squared. So basically you have a squared plus b squared equals c squared. This might be something that you guys have already seen before. If you have, that's great. If you haven't, that's okay. The hypotenuse is always the longest side in a right triangle. Definitely write this down somewhere on your notes. You definitely need to write down the Pythagorean theorem, and I would draw this picture here, and then I would use this equation. And again, if I'm going too fast, just pause it. So to find the value of x, the Pythagorean theorem again is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So we're going to set this up. 8 and 6 are the legs. X is the longest side. That's our hypotenuse. So we want to, it doesn't matter what order you put the 6 and the 8 in. You can do whichever order you want. The 8 can come first or the 6 can come first. It doesn't matter. So 6 squared is 36. 8 squared is 64. X squared, we're just going to leave it like that. 36 plus 64 is 100. And then to get rid of this little squared symbol there, we have to take the square root of both sides. And we end up getting 10 equals x. Now, this is an example of a Pythagorean triple here because all of the numbers are nice numbers, basically. So if you have 6 and 8 as the legs, your hypotenuse is always going to be 10. For number 2, again, we're going to set it up the same way. 7 squared plus 24 squared equals x squared, or c squared, however you want to write it. 7 squared is 49. 24 squared is 576. And if I add 49 and 576 together, I get 625. And then I can take the square root of both sides, and I would get 25 equals x. So again, this is an example of a Pythagorean triple. If you have the legs as 7 and 24, your hypotenuse is always going to be 25. When I was in high school and I was learning this, we had to memorize those Pythagorean triples. We're not going to make you do that, but just know that there is such a thing as a nice answer for that hypotenuse. Sometimes you're not going to get nice answers like 3, 4, and 5. We're going to round to 2 decimal places. Okay, make sure that you do that. So for number 3, now this one's a little different because we have the hypotenuse. So this is like our C, and then, you know, we have A and B. So we are going to set this up just a little bit different here. But I have A squared, so 16 squared, plus either b squared or x squared, whatever you want to do, equals c squared, which would be 19 squared. So you are going to, you know, simplify those. So 16 squared is 256. X squared you can't do anything to. 19 squared is 361. And then we're going to do a simple algebra problem. So subtract 256 from both sides. You get x squared equals 105. Now 105, you're not going to take the square root of nicely, which is perfectly fine. We are just going to round to 2 decimal places, okay? If you guys have been in Algebra 1 or Algebra 2 before, definitely Algebra 2, you should remember this. Algebra 1, I'm not sure if you got to this with how last year went, but we can technically reduce a radical. We're not going to make you do that in geometry. All you need to do is put the square root of 105 in your calculator, and then you end up getting like 10.2469, and then it keeps on going on and on. So we want you to round to 2 decimal places. Now, when you're looking, we don't just want to put 0.24 because that 4, there's a 6 after it. So that 6 rounds that 4 up to 5. So it would be 10.25 rounded to 2 decimal places. Okay, now number 4, again, so this would be A, this would be A, this would be B, this would be C. So this is a little different, but so A is x squared, B is x squared, and C is 6 squared. Okay, now, not sure if you guys remember this, but when you are combining like terms, okay, so there's like an imaginary 1 here and a 1 here. You're not going to add the 2's up because that is the variable. You're only adding the 1's up. So 1 plus 1 is 2, so you'd have 2x squared equals 6 squared, which is 36. And then you can solve. So divide by 2 on both sides, you get x squared equals 18. And then when you take the square root of 18, you get x equals 4.242. It keeps on going on. So our answer here would be x equals 4.24. Then for number 5, so we have our A, we have an A, we have a B, we have a C. So again, make sure that you're looking at those. The hypotenuse is always going to be that slanted longest side. So x squared plus 5 squared equals 10 squared. 5 squared is 25, 10 squared is 100. If I subtract 25 from both sides, I'm going to move it up here because I don't have enough room. X squared equals 75. So again, you'll take the square root of both sides, and it is 8.6602, and it keeps on going. So your answer would be x equals 8.66 when you round to 2 decimal places. Okay, so then word problems. We are going to use the Pythagorean theorem to help us here. So that a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Now, the slide at a playground has a height of 6 feet. So here's 6 feet. This is like the top of the slide here. The base of the slide measured on the ground, so like from the bottom of the slide to the end of the slide, is 8 feet. What is the length of the sliding board? So this would be your X or your C. This is a Pythagorean triple, so what we learned that first question, if you notice that and you kind of get good with these Pythagorean triples, you can just say X equals 10 feet. If you don't want to, remember those, or you forget, you can easily do 6 squared plus 8 squared equals X squared or C squared, however you want to put it in. 36 plus 8 squared, which is 64, equals x squared. 36 plus 64 is 100, and then you divide both sides, square root both sides, so 10 equals x. And make sure that when you are doing these, you put your units down, because it is a word problem. You are getting units. In the first 5 questions, there weren't units there, so you don't need units. But because these are talking about feet, centimeters, inches, meters, you need to have units there for your final answer. The bottom of a 13-foot straight ladder is set onto the ground 5 feet away from the wall. So here is your, house. The ladder is 13 feet long. It's set onto the ground 5 feet away from the house. When the top of the ladder is leaned against the wall, what is the distance above the ground it will reach? So this is your X here. For these, draw a picture, guys. It really helps to draw a picture. I know some of you aren't great artists. I'm not either, but it still helps you figure out where these values go. So I'm going to have x squared plus 5 squared equals 13 squared. 5 squared is 25. 13 squared is 169. And then I'd subtract 25 from both sides. I would get x squared equals 144. And then I can take the square root of both sides, and I would get x equals 12 feet. This is another example of a Pythagorean triple. If you have the legs that are 5 and 12, your hypotenuse is going to be 13. Okay, for number 3, in shop class, you make a table that sides of the table measure 36 inches and 18. Okay, so if we're talking about the tabletop here. So one side is 36 inches, one side is 18 inches. What would the diagonal of the table be? I guess I didn't draw that correctly for you guys. Hold on. What would the diagonal of the table be? So that would be our x. So 18 squared plus 36 squared equals x squared. 18 squared is, actually I did not write this down, but I have what they both equal. So 18 squared is 324. 36 squared is 1296 equals x squared. And then those two added together is 1620. So then you'll want to take the square root of both sides, and you get x equals 40.249 da da da. So your answer would be 40.25 or 25 feet. Again, if I'm going too fast, just go ahead and pause it, and you can, catch up in a second. The doorway of a family room measures 6.5 feet, so 6.5 feet by 3 feet. What is the length of the diagonal of the doorway? 6.5 squared plus 3 squared equals x squared. The diagonal is always going to be your c squared. It comes after the equal sign. 6.5 squared is, is 42.25. Plus 9 equals x squared. If you just want to put this whole thing in your calculator and get your final value, which is this, so if you want to go from here to here, that is perfectly fine with me. And then we're going to take the square root of both sides. So x equals 7.1589, and then it keeps on going. So we're going to round that to 2 decimal places with word problems every time. So the 5, you have an 8 after, so the 5 rounds up to a 6. Whoops, and then I need my units. So it's 7.16 feet. Okay, so then for number 5, Scott wants to swim across a river that is 400 meters wide. So he swims across, that's 400 meters. He begins swimming perpendicular to the shore. So perpendicular to the shore he started from. So that would be, like this, going like this. He ends up 100 meters downriver, and then how far did he swim from his starting point? Okay, so we have 400 squared plus 100 squared equals x squared. 400 squared is 1600, 100 squared, or wait, it's 160,000, sorry, plus 100,000 equals x squared, so it would be 170,000 equals x squared. And then you would take the square root of both sides, and you would get x equals 412.3105, which would round to 412.31 feet. Okay, so the size of a computer monitor is the length of its diagonal. You want to buy a 19-inch monitor that has a height of 11 inches. So 19-inch, which would be the diagonal, that has a height of 11 inches. What is the width of the monitor? So 11 squared plus x squared equals 19 squared. 11 squared is 121. 19 squared is, let's see, 19 squared, where is that? Is 361. You would subtract 121 from both sides, and you'd get x squared equals 240. Take the square root of both sides, and you get x equals 15.4919. So your width would be 15.49 inches. Okay, naming triangles and triangle inequality theorem. So these types of triangles, so if you do your a squared plus b squared and it is greater than c squared, it means it's an acute triangle. So an acute triangle, you know, all of your angles are not greater than 90. A right triangle would be when it equals c squared, so your two sides squared equals c squared, and c is always going to be your longest side. And this here is also the converse of, the converse of the Pythagorean theorem. So if you have two sides that add up to, or two sides squared, that add up to your longest side squared, then it means it's a right triangle. So if you had, you know, this, and there wasn't a little right triangle thing there, and you had, you know, 6, 8, and 10, this squared plus this squared adds up to this squared, which means this triangle is a right triangle. This theorem, so where c squared is more than a squared plus b squared, is an obtuse triangle. So one of your angles there is your is an obtuse, so it's greater than 90 degrees. In order for three numbers to create a triangle, the smaller sides added together must be greater than the longest side. You guys need to write this down in your notes. Okay, so decide if the three numbers are can represent a triangle. So what you would do is you would do 3 plus 2 is 5. 5 is greater than 4, so this is a triangle. And then to figure out if it is obtuse, right, or acute, so this one, if I do 3 squared is 9, 2 squared is 4, 4 squared is 16. 9 plus 4 is less than 16, so because c squared is greater than the other two, this is an obtuse triangle. For 1, 2, and 5, so 1 plus 2 is less than 5, which means that this is not a triangle. 5 plus 7 is equal to 12, so again, this is not a triangle. 11 plus 15 are my two smallest sides. Because that added together is greater than my longest side, this is a triangle. And to figure out what kind of triangle it is, so 11 squared plus 15 squared, and then 16 squared. 11 squared, so it would be 121 plus 225 is definitely greater than 16 squared, which is 256. So this is an acute triangle. So I want you guys to try these ones, and then I will go through the answers with you. So try those first before you listen to the answers. 3, 4, and 5 would make a triangle, and it would be an acute one. 5, 13, and 18 would not make a triangle. 5 plus 4 is greater than 8, so this does make a triangle, and when I do my inequalities there, it would be an obtuse triangle. 5 plus 6, the two smaller sides, add up to greater than 7, so this would be a triangle as well, and this is an acute triangle. 1.1 plus 2.4 is less than 3.7, so this is not a triangle. And then 4 plus 4 is greater than 5, so this would be a triangle, and it is an acute triangle. Okay, so the last one here, find the length of AC. So AC is here. Okay, so we can take this triangle and figure out what AC is by doing the Pythagorean theorem. So we do 7.2 squared plus 9.6 squared equals x squared, which is AC. 7.2 squared plus 9.6 squared would be 144. And then if I take the square root of both sides, x equals 12. Whoops, x equals 12. So that means the length of AC is 12 meters. Make sure you put the units there because they give us the units. Okay, now if we have, I'm going to erase this here, we have what AC is, which is 12 meters. Now if you think about it, why is that not letting me do that? Okay, now if you think about it, now it's asking us to find, I don't want to do that. Now it's asking us to find AG. So look at the kind of thing that it forms. We have a triangle here that it forms, and we know that GC over here is 3.5 meters because this side is 3.5 meters. So we can do 3.5 meters squared plus 12 squared equals x squared. 3.5 squared plus 12 squared is 156.25. And then I would want to take the square root of both sides, which would be 12.5 meters is AG. So 12.5 meters, AG equals 12.5 meters. You don't have homework today, so you'll have a little warm-up on Monday. Have a great day. Have a great weekend.